What if the remedy for heartbreak was literally stopping other hearts? What if the woman who brings life into the world decided who deserves to keep it? Nagyrév, Hungary, 1929. On December 14th, the New York Times publishes a review that shocks the world. The trial begins of nearly 50 women accused of poisoning most of the men in a remote Hungarian village. But 5 months earlier, on July 19th, gendarmes had marched toward a modest house where the most powerful woman in the village lived. Zsuzsanna Fazekas, the midwife who for 18 years had decided who was born and who died in this forgotten community at the edge of a crumbling empire. When they arrive, they find her motionless in her bed. An empty vial rests on her nightstand. She had chosen her own end with the same substance she had used to liberate more than 50 men, pure arsenic. Her death marks the conclusion of what the New York Times described as the largest mass murder of men by women in modern history. For nearly 2 decades, the women of this remote village had transformed medicinal arsenic into an instrument of justice, or revenge. The line between the two, as always in the world of poisons, was as thin as it was deadly. It is death, it is life. It has toppled kings, seeded wonders. Conspiracy and science, crime and salvation. Echo of shadows, flash of light. This is poison, cure or curse, where the deadly and the miraculous merge in a single vial. In 1911, when Zsuzsanna Fazekas arrives in Nagyrév, the world is changing. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is cracking apart, but for the women of this forgotten village, the chains remain unbroken. Fazekas possesses something revolutionary: knowledge. In an era with no local doctors and no permanent priests, she becomes the sole medical authority. But her true power doesn't come from healing, it comes from listening. All the women told her their problems, recalls Maria Gunya, who lived in the village and testified for the BBC in 2004. Women came seeking remedies for the body, but ended up revealing wounds of the soul. Fazekas begins performing clandestine abortions, defying the laws of both God and state. She is brought to trial, but never convicted. Her impunity teaches her something dangerous, that knowledge can be more powerful than the law. She told the women that if they had problems with their men, she had a simple solution, Gunya explains. The solution was not divorce, that didn't exist. It was not running away, that meant losing everything. It was arsenic. Arsenic is the perfect chemical paradox. For centuries it had been medicine. In microscopic doses it treated syphilis, malaria, skin conditions. Doctors prescribed it as a tonic, a blood purifier. But increase the dose by a few milligrams, and the medicine becomes an executioner. Chemically, arsenic is a cellular saboteur. It infiltrates the mitochondria and halts the respiration of every cell. The body literally suffocates from within, cell by cell, organ by organ. The symptoms mimic common illnesses: fatigue, digestive trouble, fever. In an era without toxicological analysis, a poisoned husband simply looked sick. Fazekas had discovered the perfect balance: enough arsenic to kill, not enough to raise suspicion. It was chemistry converted into lethal art. But here comes one of the most chilling details in the entire story. The women obtained the arsenic by boiling flypaper in their own kitchen stoves. That ordinary household product, designed to kill insects, contained enough arsenic to kill a grown man. Picture the scene. Women cooking the family dinner while, on the same stove, they boil flypaper to extract the poison they would use that very night. The kitchen, the heart of the home, transformed into a laboratory of death. What nourished life also distilled death. Between 1911 and 1929, something extraordinary and terrible unfolds in Nagyrév. The women do not act alone. They develop a network, a support system for murder. The scale of the horror becomes clear when we consider the numbers. Nagyrév had only 800 inhabitants. More than 50 deaths over 18 years means that 1 in every 16 people in the village was murdered. This was not merely poisoning, it was virtually domestic genocide. They meet, share techniques, advise each other on dosages. Fazekas is called the angel maker, a term originally referring to those who performed abortions, but which takes on a far more sinister meaning. The woman began to see many things happening inside the homes: men who beat their wives, who raped them, many who were unfaithful. A great deal of abuse, Gunya documented. The first poisoning opens the floodgates. One by one, the women discover that death can be a form of divorce. Arsenic becomes their only law, their only justice, their only freedom. But the story of Nagyrév conceals deeper mysteries. Physician and historian Gazarksay has studied the archives for decades and finds troubling inconsistencies. Some reports say that some women had taken lovers among the Russian prisoners of war recruited to work on the farms in the absence of their men at the front, he explains. During the First World War, with the village men at the front, Russian prisoners arrived to work the land. Some women develop relationships with these foreigners. When the husbands return, traumatized and furious, domestic violence intensifies. When the husbands came back, the women mourned the sudden loss of their freedom and, one by one, decided to act. In the 1950s, Ferenc Georgiev meets an elderly man from Nagyrév who confides a chilling secret. The women of the village had been killing their men since time immemorial. Was Nagyrév unique? Later investigations suggest not. In the nearby village of Tisakurt, exhumed bodies also tested positive for arsenic, but no one was prosecuted. According to some estimates, the total number of deaths across the region may have reached 300. In 1929, 26 women face justice in Szolnok. 8 are sentenced to death, 7 to life imprisonment. Their ages range from 20 to 60 years old. The trial records reveal devastating accounts of abuse, mistreatment, and rape. But few admit guilt, and their motives are never fully understood. There was another chilling detail. They did not only kill husbands. Investigations revealed that some women had expanded their targets, poisoning fathers, brothers, and even sons when they became abusive or inconvenient. Arsenic made no distinction of kinship. As for their motives, theories abound. Poverty, greed, and boredom are among them, Xay analyzes. But something deeper was at stake. In a society where marriages were commercial contracts involving land and inheritance, where divorce did not exist and you could not separate even if you were abused or mistreated, as Gunya recalled, arsenic had become the only form of divorce available. Zsuzsanna Fazekas represents one of the most complex paradoxes in the history of poison. Was she a manipulative killer, or a liberator who gave women the only power available to them in her time? As a midwife, she had devoted her life to bringing life into the world. But in Nagyrév she discovered that sometimes, to preserve certain lives, others had to end. In her hands, arsenic became something more than poison. It was chemical justice, redistributive power, molecular revolution. For the first time in centuries, the women of Nagyrév stopped being victims and became something far more dangerous, survivors with control over their own fate. The most chilling effect of the Nagyrév poisonings was their impact on the survivors. According to collected testimony, the behavior of men toward their wives improved noticeably after the story became public. Fear had achieved what the law could not, protecting women from abuse. The invisible threat of arsenic became a civilizing force more effective than any moral or legal code. Today we understand that arsenic operates at the most fundamental boundary between life and death, cellular respiration. Every cell in our bodies depends on processes that arsenic can interrupt or, in microscopic doses, regulate. In modern oncology, arsenic trioxide represents one of medicine's most elegant victories, using arsenic's lethal capacity to attack cancer cells selectively, while sparing healthy ones. It is the ultimate transformation of poison into cure. Researchers have discovered that arsenic can induce apoptosis, programmed cell death, in a targeted way. It is as if the poison had learned to distinguish between good and evil at the molecular level. The story of Nagyrév teaches us that the line between victim and perpetrator, between medicine and poison, between justice and murder, is thinner than society cares to admit. These women transformed an ancient remedy into chemical revolution. They used the most basic knowledge, that certain substances can heal or kill, to rewrite the rules of power in their small universe. Arsenic was their silent confessor, their molecular ally, their final word in conversations that society refused to hear. Were the women of Nagyrév heroines or murderers? The answer, like arsenic itself, depends on the dose of perspective we apply. In a world where abuse was legal and escape was impossible, they found a third option. They turned medical knowledge into political power, chemistry into social revolution. Their legacy is as ambiguous as the poison that defined them, at once medicine and death, liberation and destruction, justice and crime. Perhaps the true lesson of Nagyrév is not moral, but chemical, that the most powerful substances in the world are those that can create and destroy with equal ease. And that the most dangerous power is the one that hides in the everyday, in the medicinal, in the seemingly harmless. Arsenic remains among us, curing leukemias in first world hospitals while contaminating water wells in the third. It is still poison and medicine, death and life, all at the same time. As the women of Nagyrév taught us, true power lies not in force, but in knowing what dose to use, and when. In our next episode, we venture into the most dangerous garden in the world, the foxglove flower and its deadly secret, digitalis. We'll explore how nature's most elegant cardiac poison became the savior of failing hearts and discover why one dose can regulate the rhythm of life, while another can silence it forever. Poison, Cure or Curse is a production by Francisco Martínez. Thank you for joining us on this toxic journey, where we discover that the line between victim and liberator can be as thin as a crystal of arsenic. Until the next poison.